Welcome to the Go Slow to Go Fast lifestyle podcast, where each week we explore what it means to live with intention, calm, and clarity in a fast-paced world. This is my solo cast episode that I'll be sharing with you every Tuesday moving forward in 2026 and beyond. And so today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about our move in 2023, during the time when we were building our custom log home. My family and I decided to move into the Rustic Farmhouse, which was built in the 80s by a Mennonite family. And we moved into that house so we didn't have to pay for an additional rental home. So moving into that home, it hadn't been lived in for a few years, and it's bare bones, very rustic. There is electrical wiring, but no heat. And it was heated by a wood stove. And you can imagine that it was going to be a very different way of life for me and my family, coming from living in a, generally speaking, a regular home with all the bells and whistles and amenities and cozy, comforts that we're used to in the 21st century. But this was bare bones living, and a microwave was not going to work in that house because of the electrical wiring. So that meant going without. And I was okay in the moment, realizing, I don't really use a microwave that much. I might reheat some meals with a microwave. I like my bowl of mashed potatoes and leftover meat, but I can go without. I can learn how to reheat meals in a different way. No biggie. Well, then as we started living in this home, I realized more and more that, one, a lot of my stuff had been put in boxes, so I didn't know where all my pots and pans were. I really just had like one box of the basics. And so I was forced to learn how to reheat meals in a very simple way, having to time things. While it was cozy downstairs because there was a wood stove, which we replaced with a heater because it wasn't safe to use. Basically, we found some different heaters that you can install electrically in a plug-in and then have them on the wall. And they served, pretty well for the time that we were in the house. We moved in the summer of 2023. And what we thought was only going to be a few months turned into probably a year and a half because of delays on the project for, building a custom log home. And it was kind of in the tail end of the pandemic. We started putting the logs came in November of 2021 after the footers had been dug and the foundation was there and set up and the road had been, dug out. There was a lot of infrastructure that had to be set up for the house. So then when we moved into the farmhouse on the property to wait for the build to be finished, we were waiting, we thought it was going to be a roof installed and the walls, drywall in certain areas and everything to be shored up and, basically, so it was airtight, and then it was just going to be the cosmetic stuff on the inside, the electrical, plumbing, drywall, finishes. Well, that was a year and a half later until we got all of that put in finally. But living in that rustic farmhouse, it taught me how to go slow to go fast. And I started really leaning into meditation every day. In a little room in that farmhouse that was kind of a makeshift office. We had a room for every one of our sons. They each got to have their own room. And my husband and I had our room. And then there was an extra room where we could use, kind of as a playroom and an office. And that's where I did my daily meditation. I would sit on the floor and I would do my yoga. But those moments in that farmhouse, while I was sometimes in a negative space, they were definitely moments where I didn't take life for granted. I was grateful for what we did have. I knew that there were people in the world who were in much worse situations than I was. And so I took every moment as a grateful moment. I was able to still have a job and put food on the table and feed and clothe my children and keep them warm. And while that was a struggle for a little bit, because we didn't know if those heaters were going to work and we didn't know how long it was going to take till our house was ready, it was still a grateful time because I valued when things did go well. So we couldn't have a microwave and we couldn't have a dryer. We had a washer, and then we would put clothes out on the line, or we would go to the local laundromat if it was too cold or raining. So that year and a half taught me so much about going without major appliances, or what I thought were major appliances. You can still wash your clothes without a washer and a dryer. You can go to a local laundromat. You can still make meals warm and cozy and cook and bake if you have an oven. It's just, you have to think differently and you have to plan differently. So now I have a beautiful kitchen. It is behind me and I love it. I designed it around my cooker stove, which is called an aga. And for many people and many busy families, the microwave is the default. It's the default way to heat and reheat meals or even cook a meal at the last minute. And although I've never cooked a meal in the microwave, I've definitely used it to melt chocolate for the holidays, which now I do in a double boiler on the stove. I do, reheat leftovers quite a bit on my cooker, and I can show you what I do with that. But 4 years ago, I was forced to go without a microwave. And really, ever since, I haven't missed it, except for maybe the occasional thought about, a microwave popcorn bag would be so easy just to throw in and make. But we have a stovetop popcorn maker, thanks to my sister. So that's covered too. So I'll show you my cooker. This is the aga. This is my kitchen. And this is the aga. And she's a little dirty right now. She needs to be cleaned. And I'll be showing you how I clean the aga cooktop here. They call it the hob. But basically, these are when they're on, because they're not on right now, but this is the boiler plate and this is the simmer plate. So if I need to cook pasta, I'm going to be putting it on this plate here. And then when I'm done with it, I can put that down. Or if I want to make a sandwich, I put it on the toaster, which is a totally different thing for the aga. This is the toaster. You put bread in this. Aga is known for their toast being very crunchy on the outside and kind of chewy on the inside. It's just a different way of thinking about toast. And once you have toast on an aga, you really don't want it any other way. It's very yummy. But there are all kinds of cooking demonstrations that you can find on the aga online. I went and did a deep dive when we were looking at getting an aga for our kitchen. We found this secondhand. It was actually in a holiday home, a holiday let in Asheville, North Carolina. And then somebody who had a high-end appliance store purchased it and had it in their store for a while. So we found it for a very reasonable price at the time. And now they've gone up quite a bit, but this was definitely a used model. And it's electric. It's not many of the agas that you see in like British movies or home shows. They are either powered by oil or coal back in the day, but now they're moving towards selling them with an electrical option, which this one is. It can be remote control, but we haven't really done that. We've always used the manual options of turning it on and off, but they're built to be very forgiving. And if you throw a roast in, it's going to be basically going in, it's all cast iron on the inside. And so it's going to be going into like a Dutch oven of its own. It's almost like its own slow cooker. And each of those oven drawers are their own temperature. So one is the top one here that I have open. This is actually the 400 oven. So in the very bottom is 400. And then If you want it to be cooking at a 425, then you move the shelf, the wire shelf up a notch to be 425 and then up again to be 450. And then if you want it to be even higher, you go up to the highest rung. And then there's also a metal plate you can put in the top if you don't want it to cook as hot as it does, because this one definitely cooks pretty hot. And I have to actually rotate anything that I put in this particular oven for half the time. So if something needs to cook for 20 minutes, like roasted vegetables, I'll put it in for maybe 9 minutes and then turn it around at the 9-minute mark so I can make sure they're getting evenly roasted and not burned. But they definitely caramelize roasted vegetables in an amazing way. And then the bottom cooker or the bottom oven is the 350. So the same way, if you want 300 or 325, then you move the rung down a little bit. And if you want 350, it's in the middle. And then if you want it to be 375, you go up higher. So you just have to adjust the wire rack, basically, for the temperature to be where you need it. But it is trial and error. You have to, like anything, every oven, it has its own kind of temperature that you need to gauge and get used to. So cookies are a great way to test that out, to see how long it takes a chocolate chip cookie to bake. Is it the typical 10 to 12 minutes, or is it a little less or a little bit more? So for me, sometimes I have to cook them a little bit longer if I have them in the 350. But I love my Aga, and it is an amazing heat source too, because this is actually warm to the touch on the outside of this, but it's not hot. Like I'm not going to burn myself if I touch it, but it's definitely warm. It's radiant heat, and it keeps your coffee cup warm if you put it on there while you're cooking and baking on the top surface. So it's kind of nice just for warming butter, melting butter, slow cooking. And then that bottom cooker on the far right side is actually the slow cooker. You can also defrost your bread in there. You can warm buns that are, something you want to have for dinner. You can keep food warm until you're ready to serve it all at once. It's amazing. I love it. And so I'll do another video on how I clean the inside of the cooktop knob. I use basically like a scouring paste. Then I let it sit on there for a little bit, and then I scrub off the dirt and grime. And then I just keep doing it. And that way it's not too abrasive. It doesn't scratch the metal that much. It really just gets the gook off. But I've cleaned the one on the right, and so I just need to do the one on the left. So I can include a video of me doing that as well. But anyway, Aga cookers, if I could have another one, I probably would if I could find it at an affordable price. But unfortunately, there aren't many people in the United States who know how to work on them, fix them if something were to go wrong. So when we installed the Aga, it had been sitting on a pallet for at least 2 years after we had bought it and had it shipped from Asheville. And then we moved from the rental house onto our property into the rustic farmhouse, waiting for the log home to be finished. And the August still sat, obviously, until we were able to install it. And by the time it was ready to be installed, we plugged it in and it didn't work. And so we looked up a couple of places where we live in Tennessee, and only 2 companies even knew what it was, and then we're able to send somebody out. But it took forever to find somebody who knew what they were doing. We actually had to end up ordering the part from England to get it fixed. So while some people's reasons are both philosophical and practical, really embracing the use of a cooker stove instead of a microwave has definitely changed the way we cook our meals and reheat our meals. So what does the data say about microwaves? According to the FDA, microwaves use non-ionizing radiation. So the same type of radiation that your phone uses, and when used properly, They are safe as long as the oven is in good working condition and undamaged. They don't make food radioactive or inherently harmful. Nutrition researchers also note that all cooking methods reduce nutrients simply because heat breaks them down. But because microwaves cook quickly and use little to no added water, they often preserve vitamins better than boiling or long oven roasting. Some studies even suggest that microwaving can reduce the formation of harmful compounds compared to high heat frying or overcooking. There's no established evidence that microwaving food causes long-term health harm if used correctly. So that's the scientific baseline based on the data I could find. Safety isn't the concern. The question becomes, why choose not to use one? For me, the choice wasn't about fear. It was about necessity, because we couldn't have a microwave in the rustic farmhouse we were staying in. And then we just learned to live without it. And it's one less appliance that we have to use in the home now. It doesn't take up any counter space. We didn't have to install it. We do have a coffee maker. We use the tea kettle, the water kettle that plugs in and heats up and boils water fast. We do have some appliances for convenience, including an Instapot. But we don't have a toaster anymore because we use the toaster on the Aga. And we have the Aga for slow cooking. So I don't have a slow cooker technically anymore. Like I had a big slow cooker. But the Instapot can be used as a slow cooker, as a rice maker, as, a soup maker. So it's definitely has its necessities in heating up food that is frozen quicker. I've used it to make carnitas and chicken recipes really fast from frozen, which is great. But I don't see us getting an air fryer. I don't see us getting a microwave in the future. I think it's a different way of life and it definitely teaches you patience. Reheating meals takes about 30 minutes to 45 minutes, depending on what it is. If you're going to be heating up like a lasagna or mashed potatoes or a meat dish. But if you're cooking like a soup, it takes about the same amount of time on the stove, if not faster, because the cooktops are so hot. And for those of you that are unfamiliar with an Aga, it is a radiant heat cooker. It's traditionally kept on all the time. But in the summer months, you might turn it off because it does radiate heat. But it doesn't put out a ton of heat unless it's on. And you can have it completely off. You could have it halfway on to where it only takes a few minutes for it to get to full temperature, or you can have it always on all the time. So you have a choice when you're using the type of Aga that we have. Now, the ones that you see in movies in England where they have the old homes and they have those Aga stoves, those cookers, they're usually on all the time unless they turn them off in the summer. It is a constant, gentle heat. It does cook food with radiant warmth rather than that direct flame or a rapid heat cycle. And it invites a slower cooking style, one that's definitely patient and goes along with my go slow to go fast philosophy. So with the Aga, food simmers, it brews, it develops flavor over time. It's literally like a slow cooker. It's very forgiving. The slower pace doesn't just affect the meal, it changes your relationship with food. And my kitchen keeps its own rhythm, warm in the winter, and it's steady in those transition seasons, helping anchor that day, and becomes part of your family tempo rather than a place of hurry in the kitchen. And without a microwave's blip of convenience, every meal feels deliberate, not rushed. And yes, sometimes it can be kind of frustrating to have to wait for the Aga to heat up, but we're just used to it now. It's a choice. It's a moment of mindfulness that aligns with how we want to live. Spending time with me today, exploring how a specific kitchen necessity, and then later by choice, living with an Aga and choosing not to use a microwave actually reveals deeper truths about peace, presence, and intention. Join us next time for more ways to go slow to go fast. And remember, the light in me honors the light in you. And as you head into the rest of your week, let your light shine through. Go slow to go fast, and thanks for listening.